guys. In the spirit of posting pictures and videos about plants when they are not in their prime, or either when they're just in a growth cycle that's ugly or unusual, or just ones that help you figure out what the heck is going on with my plants. These are my lovely lithops. And there's a couple things I want to point out about them right now. First off, the fact that they are really, really flat into the ground. Like some of them are almost concave. Like look at this one. See how the edges are raised and the innard is really, really flat and kind of sunken in? I think this is focusing. I got them in the sun here and I thought that might help the camera focus. Yay! That means they are really thirsty. This guy here, you can see he shed his little skin. This is the last little crusty bit of skin, and I will just pull that off. But when they, there's debate among professionals as to whether the taproot actually kind of screws them down into the dirt, and that's why they go down into the dirt certain times, or if it's that they just lose moisture and are shrinking down into the dirt. But either way, pardon me, let me go over here. Either way, as we all know, they also raise up out of the dirt. And they do this for a variety of reasons. Either they're etiolated, which means they're reaching for the light and don't have enough, which in the case of these guys, they were in a window, a west window, and then got a little bit less light than normal, so it's possible, but these guys were already sticking up like that. This is a cluster, and these two just grew like that, so when I planted them, I had to leave one out more than the other, which was quite a while ago. But they, okay, now see the wrinkling on the side, or the kind of this on the sides here? This is pretty normal, and this happens at various times in various cycles when they're shedding. The puckering on top though, see this here, the puckering on top and the flatness and the wrinkling is also a sign. It's just not a sign all by itself that they could use a drink also. Now these guys, you know, these were supposed to be all the same types when I got them, but ever since I got them, these ones have looked significantly different from these. And so I really think that they might be a different variety, because while they have exactly the same care, obviously because they're in the same pot together, these guys don't look like they need a watering. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy blooms in a bit. I have some more here, and some of these are starting to shrink down into the ground a bit more. Some of them just finished shedding their outer skin, and one of them is still working on getting rid of one of its little mother leaves there. Right, but back to this pot here. These guys really need a drink. I was waiting and waiting and waiting because like this guy here was one of the first to shed his outer leaves, and so they were doing their thing, and this guy was one of the last, and so I was waiting to give them a drink, and then I got so sick, and then 2 months later here it is. And so, you know, my husband knows don't touch the lithops. He is amazing and has done such a good job keeping so many of my other plants alive and succulents, but the lithops, he's like, yeah, just don't touch them, because he knows they will survive until I get well, most likely, and it's better to not water them than to water them. However, I did mist them, or I had him mist them a couple of times, all of these and the rest of mine, which are somewhere else because I'm repotting them right now. But they I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I did miss them because it took so long for this guy to shed his outer leaves, and I didn't want the root hairs to die. Some people, I think, you know, don't water them like at all because they're so afraid of killing them, which is understandable, especially when you first buy them, or if you buy them from Home Depot or Lowe's. It's very, very understandable. However, if you're buying them from a reputable dealer and you know what life phase they're in, you really don't have to be scared about watering lithops. It's just knowing when to water them, which you have to know what life cycle they're in. And when you buy them from Home Depot or Lowe's and they are etiolated and they are overwatered and they are bulging, I wish I had some overwatered one to show you. This is about the closest one here that I have. See how bulging he is, which he's actually not even overwatered. You can see his little wrinkling there. But the ones that you get that are just really round on the top, a lot of those, they're not supposed to be that way naturally. And it's really, really hard to tell what life cycle they're in, and it takes forever for them to shed their leaves sometimes, which I talk about in another video. But these guys, if your lithops are looking like this, really kind of shrinking into the ground, which again, if they're etiolated, they don't ever really shrink back. Once they need light and they kind of reach like that, they really never shrink back fully. But depending on where you are and how much humidity you have in your air, they will grow up out of, they will grow up out of the dirt more. If your potting mix is kind of too humid, sometimes they get up out of the dirt to breathe. But if the potting mix is porous and they're not having too much water, they will sink down like this. But they do need water, and you don't want to deprive your lithops of water for too long, especially when they need it, especially like in the summer, if your air is a lot drier than normal, etc. Because though they are able to stand a lot of drought, the little root hairs do need moisture, and these plants adjust to our environment. So in order to survive in the wetter months with the humidity in the air, they get used to a certain amount of moisture. And so then when you completely deprive them in another phase of life and they dry out too much, the root hairs can die, and your whole lithop, it'll just slowly shrivel and die, and there's no way to save it because there's no root. And so we don't want that to happen. Anyways, if your lithops look like this, water them. And how I mean water them is I am going to take these and soak it until it comes out the drainage hole, let it set for a minute, and I am going to soak it until it comes out the drainage hole again, and then put them back in their happy little spot in the sun in their clay pot, and they will be dry in probably a day, honestly, probably a few hours, but for sure a day. So there you go. You guys have a great day.